And so about that Sega experience, you said that the Sega experience continues to nurture my need to educate young women to be independent, to think creatively, to be leaders, to dream big dreams and realize them, and to move their lives out of poverty in the most productive way possible. And I think that speaks a little bit to the Oprah Winfrey story, where you're teaching them to own their lives, to look at how they can make their lives better and be productive. So they're taking control and
Right.
they're able to move forward. They're not just asking for a handout or wallowing in
Right.
grief, but they're actually able to take command
Right.
and move forward. And that's a very powerful message.
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
I participated just last year in helping the school with the STEM program. And one of the things we did was we found African scientists who we could show these girls as role models. You don't have to leave Africa. You don't even have to leave Tanzania to have a career in science. You don't have to go to medical school in the United States.
Yeah.
You can have careers, and that was important because they have to know that it's within their grasp.
Mm-hmm.
So finding people who are close to the reality that they face, which is probably maybe never leaving Tanzania, but still being able to go on, and in science especially.
Yeah, and we were talking before, and you told me about a young woman who came to you and said she wanted to be the president of
Yes.
Tanzania.
Yes, and I said, why not? There are many women in Africa who've been leaders of their countries. So I gave her a list with either an address where she could write or an email address, and said, your job is to contact these leaders, tell them what your dream is, and ask them, what do I need to do to get where you are?
Mm-hmm.
And she did it.
And she did it.
She
which
did
is
it.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so another quote that I thought was really impressive was, one of the most memorable experiences was when I became the student and my students taught me something during our discussions of famous women. And that was at the time when you were talking about the astronaut and Oprah. And it goes back to your theme of mentors and teaching and being a student and learning.
One of my students, for whom I paid for her high school education, and I said, if you want to go on in school, if you want to go to medical school, I will pay for that. She, after the Form 4, they go into the A-levels, because it's the British system. So she's still in her A-levels. But if she writes to me and tells me that she's decided she's from Dar es Salaam, and if she says, I want to go to the University of Dar es Salaam, she told me she'd like to become a botanist because she wants to find medicines in natural plants. So I will pay for her education if she goes on. So we kind of bonded, and I will follow her, and hopefully she will go on and get another degree.
Yeah. And so back to your photography. So being in Africa, you were able to take a trip with a National Geographic photographer. And so you traveled around safari, took some very wonderful pictures. So what was that like, actually traveling with him? That was Jay, right?
Jay Dickman, who's a Pulitzer Prize winning photographer.
Yeah.
Well, it was my first trip to Africa and my first safari. And it's interesting because over the course of our years now, since in our retirement, we've met and been with many National Geographic photographers. And the illustrator of our book was one of those gentlemen. But the first time I had my portfolio reviewed, the National Geographic photographer looked at it and he said, he goes, I get claustrophobic when I look at your photographs. You're too close. You cut off the guy's arm, or you did this or that. So we go out on safari with Jay, and Jay says, you can never get too close. If you see somebody's big toe and that looks interesting to you, get in there and take a picture of it. So that's when I learned, because I was like, after the first photographer told me I shouldn't be so close, I was like, I am not worthy. I will do anything you say, oh good master. And then we go out and Jay goes, anything goes. So then I realized you have to find your own eye and vision, your own way of seeing things, because there is no format, there is no rule. and it's up to you. And that's when I decided, well, I love wild animals, but I like human beings, and I particularly like women, and I like environmental portraits, so you get in close and you can see the wrinkles in their face and you can see, you know, the glint in their eyes, and that's kind of where I went from there. After that, I decided I know what I like to take, and as photographs, that's what I'm going to do.